You're listening to Potato Pasta, the best stories from the internet narrated by a human. The following prompt was written by Annihilator1. This video is part 2 from the same prompt. If you want to see part 1, I'll link that video in the description. Humans are the proverbial sleeping giant, and thus make remarkably good deterrents. A common tactic of the Galactic Federation is to simply call in a human warship, such as the USS Fuck around and find out, and simply let it sit nearby. Peace talks happen within the week. The following response was written by BreakfastInSymphony. It was an unusually busy day on Galhub 4. The Rishians and the Under-Rishians were at each other's throats, the coffee printers were on the fritz, and the Lugari embassy was on fire. The whole station seemed to be about to boil over into one big tangle of diplomatic incidents. The call center was sinking into an ocean of chaos. All the switchboard lights were on, each of them blinking with escalating severity codes. The staff had never seen so many red levels coming in at once. In the central offices, the supervisors were desperately trying to hold things together. It was almost like the whole Galactic Federation was trying to pull itself apart at once. In Section Bravo 11, a beleaguered Bublon smoothed his ears, replaced his headset, and tried to ignore the wails around him as he connected to the next call in the queue.
Peacekeeping Division, this is Tombo. Sorry for the delay. We're experiencing higher than normal call volume.
The screaming from the other end interrupted Tombo's script and continued for quite some time. The Bublon supervisor loosened his tie, took it off, folded it neatly, opened his lower desk drawer, and traded the tie for a bottle of very against policy Kuiper brandy. By the time Tombo took his second pull of brandy, the screaming had stopped. Tombo cleared his throat and reassembled his customer service voice.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. Yes, I have your system profile up on my screen. You don't have a Navy registered with us, is that correct? Yes, undefended? And the Dukrons are in orbit now? Are they...
More screaming. The Bublon muted himself, took a quick drink, and resumed talking.
Yes, I heard. We can.
Tombo checked his second monitor and tabbed through the naval dispatch list.
We can have a Galfed battle group in system within 3 hours.
The screaming transitioned from terrified to angry.
Ma'am, yes, I understand. Yes, unacceptable, of course. But that's against policy.
A blast of rage-filled epithets blew through the headset speakers. Tombo calmly muted himself, took off the headset, drained the bottle of brandy, and tossed it in the general direction of the trash can. He took a few quick breaths and replaced the headset, then, closing his eyes, toggled the mic back on.
Ma'am, I understand that a standard battle group does not fit your needs, but yes, you're a valued customer and trading partner. But we're not in the habit of... Oh, all right, hold on.
Tombo returned to the naval dispatch list and scrolled down.
There is only one human ship nearby. It's, let me see. Yes, it's a missile destroyer, ma'am. I remind you that all calls are recorded for quality assurance, and I need you to state clearly that you would prefer the single human vessel to the official Galfed Peacekeeping Naval Forces battle group.
For once, there was no screaming, only a perfectly calm,
yes,
and then a question.
The name? It's called the Don't Make Me Get the Belt.
Some light years away, aboard a small gray ship with an excessive number of missile tubes, a bored-looking comms officer turned to his commander and said,
I've confirmed the request for intervention. It's a red level, shots fired.
The commander stubbed out his naval-issue cigar and rubbed his mustache. He eyed the chalkboard on the wall beside the access hatch. Scrawled at the top was, Wars Prevented, followed by a number of tally marks. Under that was Wars Ended, with only one mark. The commander smiled.
We'll take the lead this month for sure. Prepare for transit. The Belt is going hunting.
The small gray ship vanished into FTL, its grinning shark mouth wide with hunger. The following response is written by Githka. The Sci-Fi were an enemy that seemed without end, hive-mind insectoids of the planet of Kelendotho, defending their territories with a rush of bodies that all were perfectly happy to dispose of for the greater good of their hive. So bad was fighting these things that the Galactic Council simply made it law that all members were not to intrude upon any planet they considered theirs to save themselves the trouble of further fighting them. Truly, it was thought that no species had the warlike capacity in them to finally put them on the ropes. That was, at least, until the deterrents showed up. No species was so ballsy as to attempt a direct invasion of Nellthe as their first offensive. No species had such a capacity to fight that all of its servicemen were volunteers. No species had such an ability to hold a grudge that they were perfectly willing to wipe out the Sci-Fi right down to the very last worker drone. No species, that is, except the Deterrents. Thus was how the Council had found them. There had been no word of the status of any Sci-Fi of any kind for many stardates. No invasions, no excursions, not even so much as a worker being spotted. And after such time, the Council had gone en route to Nellthe to see if they may have had a change. A change had occurred, but not the one that was expected. Nellthe had been left barren. All scans showed the same thing. Nothing on the planet. Not the plants, not the various orders of animal, not even the many single-celled organisms were left alive. And that was when first contact occurred.
This is the TSG Roger Young. You are traversing through Terran Federation territory. Identify yourself or be destroyed.
And thus was the start of an interesting relationship. The Terrans were inducted into the Council with a quickness, on terms that were favorable to them to an insane degree. But it was necessary, as the Council now had an arm by which to actually enforce its directives, even if they couldn't make them enforce or even follow all of them. Previously, the members could essentially say they'd not follow a directive and there'd be nothing the Council could do without going to war with itself, which it did many times, and the citizenry were understandably tired of it. Now the threat of, or else what, had a response. One call to the Terran Federation and they'd simply have to park one of their capital ships in the straggler's space. Sure, it took 3 conflicts that had many a death, one nearly eradicating another species were it not for cooler heads prevailing in the Terran Federation, causing their at-the-time Sky Marshal being deposed. Now, just seeing the George S. Patton or the Roger Young or even the Napoleon Bonaparte in their space was enough to get the strangers to be more open to peaceful negotiation. And truthfully, the Terrans preferred it that way. They disliked war just as we did. That did not mean they were not good at it. And to think that their volunteerism was born in decent part out of their simple motto, service guarantees citizenship. The following response is by Nellthe.
Zorvax and the Zalazites are getting into it again in Sector 37A Zulu,
Zorba said while checking reports on his monitor.
That's what, like 4th time this week?
Ulok asked while scratching one of his heads with his middle tentacle.
5th, actually.
Zorba said, looking over the reports.
Is it time?
Ulok asked.
Should we call in the big guns?
According to the Galactic Federation, it is the 5th strike, and we have to interfere,
Zorba said, and Ulok's tentacles wobbled in excitement.
Let's call in the humans,
Ulok said with a squeaky voice and pressed a few buttons on his console.
In the vast expanse of the galaxy, countless civilizations coexist, some peacefully and some not so much.
The Galactic Federation, a coalition of species from across the universe, was established out of necessity to maintain peace and stability among these diverse species across the galaxy. However, sometimes conflicts arise, and when they do, the Federation has a secret weapon: the humans. Humans, as it turns out, are remarkably good deterrents. Their reputation for being fierce, unpredictable, and warlike is known throughout the galaxy. But the most likely reason they are feared all around is their history of nuking their own planets several times throughout history. If they are willing to do that to themselves, what would they be capable of doing to others? So, even though humans are relatively new to the intergalactic community, their military prowess is already legendary. Within a week of the human ship's arrival, peace talks usually start. The mere threat of human intervention is enough to force the warring parties to the negotiating table. Even the most stubborn and belligerent species known to the Galactic Federation don't want to incur the wrath of the humans. Of course, humans are not without their own agendas. They know that their reputation is their greatest asset in the galaxy, and they're not afraid to use it to their advantage, making insane money, exploring the uncharted territories of space, and claiming the empty planets they find for themselves. The Federation is happy to let them do so, as long as it means that peace can be maintained. Soon after they sent the request, the answer came from the Human Control Center. The available ship nearest to that sector was the USS F*** around and find out.
They answered,
Ulok said with excitement. Zorba nodded, reading over the message they received.
The USS F*** around and find out is available, and it should do the trick. That one always seems to get the job done in just a few days.
Ulok grinned with all of his head.
I can't wait to see the look on those Zorvax and Zalazites' faces when they see that the USS around and find out is in orbit.
Zorba chuckled.
You'll think twice before starting another fight after this. I gotta admit, I did not like the humans at first when we accepted them into the Galactic Federation due to their nature, but hot damn if it's not fun having them on our side.
Tell me about it.
Ulok said.
I love their interventions. It's better than the movies. I'll prepare some of the best human cuisines for us to watch this masterpiece. The popcorn.
Zorba nodded, finally cracking a smile of his own with one of his two mouths.
Love me some popcorns.
Ulok quickly scurried off to prepare the human cuisines, while Zorba began to make arrangements to inform the Federation of the upcoming intervention by the USS Fuck Around and Find Out. As they settled in to watch the action, Ulok brought out the popcorn and they both eagerly awaited the arrival of the human warship. Within a matter of hours, the USS Fuck Around and Find Out arrived in orbit next to the Galactic Federation Center where Zorba and Ulok worked. Before heading over to Sector 37 Alpha Zulu, two aliens watched in awe as the massive vessel dwarfed everything else in the sector.
They sure make them big.
Zorba said.
I heard they run on 6 cores instead of 1 or 2 like most other civilizations.
Ulok said.
And that design. It's so unnecessary and tacky, but I love every second of it.
Zorba chuckled.
That's the humans for you. They may be a bit excessive, but they get the job done.
As they watched the USS Fuck Around and Find Out depart towards Sector 37 Alpha Zulu, Zorba and Ulok couldn't help but feel a sense of relief knowing that the humans were on their way to intervene in the conflict between the Zorvax and Zalazites and stop a possible war. But they also felt the sense of excitement as they will get to watch the Masters at work.
Rise and shine, ladies and gentlemen!
Captain Jackson Ace Pierce of the USS Fuck Around and Find Out yelled over the comms.
We got another assignment!
Lieutenant Commander Oliver Spark Stone was sleeping in his quarters as he was startled by the announcement and turned to the other side of the bed. He was too hungover to wake up and barely heard what Ace had said over the intercom.
Spark, you too!
Ace yelled a bit louder over the intercom for everyone to hear. Spark groaned as he rubbed his temples, realizing he had a bit too much to drink at the ship's bar the night before. He quickly got dressed and headed to the bridge, hoping to avoid any further teasing from his captain and the crew. As he entered the bridge, he saw Ace standing tall and imposing in the center of the bridge, his broad shoulders and muscular build filling out his crisp uniform. His slicked blonde hair was neatly combed back, and his piercing blue eyes scanned the room with a confident gaze. Despite being in his late 40s, Ace was in peak physical condition, his rigorous training regimen evident in the way he carried himself. He radiated a sense of authority and control, his every movement calculated and deliberate.
How's the head?
Ace asked Spark. Spark groaned and rubbed his forehead.
Could be better, could be worse.
He muttered.
Better shake it off! We got a job to do!
Ace said, clapping Spark on the shoulder.
You can't keep coming to work hungover!
You forced me to drink last night and said there was no mission in sight.
Spark answered with a puzzled look.
I'm messing with you!
Ace said with a grin.
But do drink some coffee. We really have an unexpected mission.
Spark nodded and sat up, forcing himself to shake off the cobwebs of his hangover. He asked one of the officers to bring him a large cup of coffee and some headache medications and rejoined Ace's side. As they made their way towards their chair on the bridge, Ace filled Spark in on the details of their latest mission. It was another peacekeeping/intimidation operation in a sector known for its ongoing conflicts between rival alien factions. Their job was always to serve as a deterrent and help broker a ceasefire. The sector in question was 37 Alpha Zulu, and the conflict was between two races they have never interfered with before, Zorvax and Zalazites.
What are those species?
Spark asked. Ace raised an eyebrow.
You've never heard of the Zorvax and Zalazites? Where have you been living, under a rock?
Spark chuckled.
Has anyone heard about them?
They are among many of the races known to the Galactic Federation in the handbook I've given you,
Ace said.
I've misplaced the book.
Ace rolled his eyes.
Well, let me enlighten you then. The Zorvax are a race of giant insect-like creatures with razor-sharp claws and a love for aggressive territorial disputes. And the Zalazites? Well, they're basically giant balls of gas that communicate through flatulence.
Spark's eyes widened in surprise.
You're kidding, right?
Ace smirked.
I wish I was, Spark, but unfortunately, we're dealing with a couple of real oddballs this time around.
Spark couldn't help but laugh.
Well, this should be an interesting mission.
Ace grinned.
That's the spirit, Spark. Let's show these Zorvax and Zalazites what the USS around and find out is made of.
As they reached the stairs, Ace gave a quick nod to the rest of the crew before taking his place in the captain's chair. Spark settled in at his post, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation building inside of him.
We gotta make a quick stop at the Galactic Federation post to pick up the contract for this.
Ace said.
We are in for a good payday, as this is overtime work for us.
The rest of the crew nodded and smiles came over their faces. Everyone loved an easy paycheck, and after overtime missions usually came a short vacation on one of the exotic planets. Spark couldn't help but grin.
That's what I like to hear, Captain. Let's get this done and over with so we can all enjoy some alien paradise.
As they arrived at the Galactic Federation post, Ace led the way, his confident stride turning heads. Spark followed close behind, still feeling the effects of the hangover. He hoped the paperwork wouldn't be too complicated. They were greeted by a stern-looking alien with multiple eyes and tentacles.
Captain Pierce,
The alien said in a low, rumbling voice.
I have the contract for your latest mission.
Excellent.
Ace replied with a grin.
Let's get down to business.
Spark watched as Ace negotiated the terms of the contract with the alien, his slick demeanor and quick wit impressing even the stoic alien. It was no wonder Ace was known as one of the best captains in the fleet. As they left the alien's office with the contract in hand, Spark couldn't help but notice two aliens staring at them and eating popcorn.
Who are those two aliens?
Spark asked.
And why are they looking at us?
Ace chuckled.
Oh, those two are just Zorba and Ulok. They're big fans of our ship and always excited to see us in action.
Spark raised an eyebrow.
Fans? Really?
Ace nodded.
Yeah, they love watching our interventions. Apparently it's super fun for them.
Were they eating popcorn?
Spark asked, baffled by the aliens.
Yup. Big fans of humans, as I said.
Ace said, grin still on his face.
We are superstars of space warfare, my friend.
Spark couldn't help but chuckle.
Well, I guess it's nice to have some supporters out there.
They quickly reached the ship and prepared everything necessary for their departure into Sector 37 Alpha Zulu, where the conflict was happening.
Thanks for sticking with me till the end. If you enjoy my narrations, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want to know when new videos come out, hit the bell and make sure you select all notifications. I know it's annoying to ask, but it really does help the channel reach more people. Thank you.